Hello, my Bill for Thousand Nation. How's everyone doing today? Hopefully, everyone's having a great day. If not, I hope it gets better from here. We are back with another Coffeehouse Crime. This one is titled The Killer Incel, The Delusional Case of Alek Minassian, Toronto Van Attack. All right. We just did one on with Coffeehouse Crime last week, and a viewer actually suggested that we watch this because evidently this feller is like the friends of the other feller. I'll leave a link in the description for it if I remember. I don't always remember. I'm sorry. But if I do, I will. I promise. All right. I'm excited. I love when there's more. Like, it's not even the same people. It's not the same story, but there's just more. I love it. All right, let's go ahead and get into this story. Go ahead, turn them lights down low. Put on something comfy, cup, put something special. Let's see how big of a little bitch this dude is. Because the other one, oh man.
He was a strange young man who had a secret life in the world of incels. And when down on his luck a few years later, he would ultimately decide to follow the footsteps of a deluded villain. My name is Adrian, and welcome back to Coffeehouse Crime. For today's case, I unfortunately have a sequel to share with you all.
I like the scruff. I like the scruff, my friend. Looking good.
We'll be looking into the case of Alek Minassian, the killer incel. If you haven't seen my case of Elliot Rodger, then I suggest you watch that video first, as this case is a direct continuation of Elliot Rodger's crimes. I'll leave a link in the video description below. And just a heads up, but I post...
So it's like a fucked up part 2 where they changed the main character. Yeah.
Both solved and unsolved cases here on a weekly basis, so if that is your sort of thing, please consider subscribing to Coffeehouse Crime. So pull up a seat, grab a coffee and sit back. This is the case of Alek Minassian.
Minassian. I butchered that name like a motherfucker. Wow, that's awful. It happens, it happens. Don't judge me. Go ahead, I don't care.
We're returning to Canada in today's case, to the beautiful city of Toronto. Often battling Melbourne for the golden crown of the most livable city in the world, Toronto has a tremendous amount of potential for its residents. And did you know that there are over 10 million trees in Toronto, more than its own population? There are around 6.5 million residents that like to call this place home. And although it has one of the fastest growing populations in all of North America, back in the 90s there were only about 4.5 million. And two of those were the Minassians. Sonna and her husband Vahe Minassian purchased a property on Elmslie Drive, located on Richmond Hill, north from Toronto's city centre. Vahe was the senior manager of software development.
That's way too close to your neighbors. I'm sorry. I don't know. I could not live in a place like that. I gotta have room. Got room to breathe.
At Rogers, and Sonna worked at Compugen, an IT service provider. Together, the two did very well financially. At this stage in their lives, Sonna and Vahe had two sons, and one of them went by the name of Alek Minassian. Alek was born on November 3rd, 1992. Alek's environment as a child was a very comfortable one. He was growing up deep in the suburbs of Toronto. But despite his seemingly happy upbringing, he seemed to have a few problems along the way. Neighbours described Alek as a kid who had trouble making eye contact, and he appeared to require extra care and attention from his parents. As a child, Alek attended 16th Avenue Public School.
What does that mean when a child can't make eye contact with people? I'm not picking. I'm just wondering, what is that? Why is that important?
A few blocks from his home. He would spend his afternoons working with Helpmate, a social service community program to help kids with special needs. In high school, classmates described Alek as an awkward boy. Those around him noted that he had physical tics, and he would often lash out in random outbursts and tantrums during lessons. He would fidget and twitch, tap his head, hug his arms around his body, meow like a cat, spit on himself, and sometimes repeat the phrase, "I'm afraid of girls." And since he was quiet, sensitive, and easily bothered, he was an easy target to be bullied at school, eventually being nicknamed Chewbacca by his classmates. At the age of 15, Alek was given his first computer from his parents, something he'd been asking for a very long time. And from this point onwards, Alek stopped going outdoors. Instead, he would spend all of his free time playing video games. He often played Halo obsessively late into the school nights. After graduating from Thornlea High School,
Man, Halo plays a very important role in a lot of Coffeehouse Crime. Oh, what was it? The boy Daniel killed his mom and attempted to kill his dad over Halo 3? That's crazy.
he would move to study at Seneca College, located in North York, closer to Toronto's city centre. And following his parents' footsteps, he naturally felt compelled to work in the IT industry, so he picked up a diploma in computer programming. He did so well in his studies that eventually he was offered a part-time job while studying, as a research assistant at Seneca's Centre for Development. However, this offer was short-lived. He turned the role in only months later. He eventually took a side job as a quality assurance developer at Too Good Financial Systems, an investment software firm based in Richmond Hill. But after 6 months, due to undisclosed reasons, he was then fired. Next, he acquired a temporary placement at OMERS, a pension fund company. But after completing his placement, he never received an invite from them to work full-time. Throughout the years, Alek received plenty of support from teachers, assistants, and of course from his parents. He seemed to work hard and keep his head down, but for whatever reason, things always seemed to unfray for him. I mean, sure, academically he was quite gifted, but he was also very awkward to be around. In hindsight, his strange demeanour could be easily observed, even in his recorded project assignments.
Oh hi, good to see you there. I'm using these fantastic new glass phones from Just-in-Time Flowers Industries. They let me comfortably wear my sunglasses and headphones at the same time.
Whoa, those are some cool glasses you got there.
Yeah, thanks. I just got them. They're so convenient and easy to use.
How do they work?
You just turn them on, connect it to your phone, and start playing your music. It's so easy.
Whoa, that's so cool. Can I try?
Of course.
It was in the early September of 2017, at the age of 24, that Alek moved out of his parents' home for the first time. They had actually encouraged him to join the army, and so, just 1 semester before he was due to complete his 7-year degree at Seneca College, he quit. Alek passed his entrance assessment into the Canadian Armed Forces, and shortly after that, he reported for his first day of training at a military facility in Quebec. He was recruit C23249161. But things didn't go so well for Alek in training. In a matter of days, it was obvious that he was the weakest link in his platoon. Other recruits around him started to notice that he wasn't able to complete basic stopping drills. He was oblivious to time, and he seemed mentally quite absent. By the end of the first week, other recruits in Alek's platoon were talking about him behind his back, and within the second week, he was being heavily assisted just to meet expectations. By the time week 3 came around, Alek was diagnosed with strep throat, and after being taken to the infirmary, he spent the next 3 days curled up in his bed. This was the final blow to his experience in the armed forces, because after just 16 days in training, Alek formally requested to be discharged. With disappointment and frustration, Alek returned to his family home back on Elmsley Drive, upset and weakened. And so going back to his original roots, later on in 2017, he returned to Seneca College to complete his formal qualifications. Alek again tried to make friends with his new classmates, but he failed to bring any sort of positive attention his way. No one seemed interested. He often interrupted people midway through conversation, or was distant when anyone asked him questions. But saying that, he was a very cordial and businesslike student, and so he was valued in projects. While he didn't quite know how
Man, I do a lot of that same shit, but I have ADHD. Like, maybe he's got something like that. I can't help it. It's just my brain just starts doing stuff. I get like very, I don't know.
to interact with people, he knew how to be a responsible group member. But it seemed that somewhere around the end of 2017 and early 2018, Alek's behaviour outwardly started to change. Where he was once docile and vacant, anger and frustration started to slowly emerge in his interactions with people. This involved Alek getting into a fight in one of his classes during March of 2018. And the next month in April after graduating, he posted a message to his class saying, "Finally finished college. Fuck you all and good riddance."
Oh yeah.
Classmates who were concerned about Alek messaged him over the next few days, but despite them trying to reach out, he never responded. And this is where it's important to watch the case of Elliot Rodger first, because just like Elliot, Alek had a disturbing past.
Hey, Elliot Rodger here.
Back in the year of 2013, Elliot Rodger was still alive.
I've got to say it. Man, stop being a real little bitch right now. I had to say it.
He was still actively posting on bodybuilding
I can't see his face without wanting to say the words real little bitch now.
forums and various other subreddits dedicated to the Incel community. Incels are an online subculture of people who define themselves as unable to find a romantic or a sexual partner, despite desiring one. And while there are peaceful and happy incels, the general perspective on them tends to view incels as angry, frustrated, and lonely individuals. Elliot Rodger was no different to this generalization. Not only was he outwardly angry at pretty much anyone he didn't know, he was also obnoxious, arrogant, and at times, outright laughable. But the ridicule around Elliot was one day abruptly silenced, because on the 23rd of May 2014, Elliot Rodger posted a 141-page manifesto to family and friends before tragically killing
Me manifesto. Page 1. Why does no one like me?
killing 6 others. And
Pages
Elliot's
4, 5,
actions,
and
which
6.
were profoundly
Damn.
evil, also had a dark, consequential twist. After his killings, some members of the online incel forums declared Elliot to be a hero, the king of the incels, and even the supreme gentleman. It's not known when exactly Alek Minassian became involved in the incel community, but by late 2013, while Elliot Rodger was still alive and posting, Alek was an incel too. In January of 2014, Alek Minassian actually befriended Elliot Rodger. They found each other on an incel subreddit and started talking. The two actually found out that they had a lot in common, and so reportedly they kept in contact quite often. Elliot and Alek never actually physically met, but they did spark up a good friendship out of this. A friendship that would last until May the 20th, 2014. On that final day, Elliot reached out to Alek to say that he needed to go, and that he was on a very important mission, one that may mean he will not make it back alive. And fast forward 4 days from this message, the Isla Vista massacre happened. Life ended for Elliot, but for Alek, it did not. He continued on with his studies at Seneca College, and as he did, he would continue to frequent various incel communities online. He was reportedly a frequent user on 4chan's R9K forum, another incel community, but here, with 4chan's low level of moderation, discussion is very brash, derogative, and even violent. As we know, throughout the next few years from this point onwards, Alek would rise and fall through his studies, fail at multiple jobs, fail at the army, and fail at making friends. He would also remain firmly engaged on the R9K forum and various other incel communities online. And as the world became less and less fortunate for Alek, his anger would do nothing but grow. Grow into evil thoughts that would eventually consume his mind. And those evil thoughts would turn into an evil plan. On the 23rd of April 2017, Alek travelled to a nearby truck rental office, located 16 kilometres from his family home. When he arrived, he then asked to hire a truck to move his furniture out of his house. A background check came back clean on Alek, and so he was permitted to rent. He walked out with the keys to one of their trucks, but with naivety, he had no idea how to drive the van, and so he asked one of the sales reps to show him how to switch the van's gearshift. After she left, Alek then sat in the van alone for over 20 minutes. But then suddenly, a new Facebook post emerged on his profile. He posted the following.
Private Recruit Minassian Infantry 00010. Wishing to speak to Sergeant 4chan please. C232491161. The Incel Rebellion has already begun. We will overthrow all the Chads and Stacys. All hail the Supreme Gentleman, Elliot Rodger.
Although his message was cryptic, it was clear that something wasn't quite right. And at that moment,
What?
Alec released the truck's handbrake and sped away from the rental company's parking lot. He was heading straight for downtown Toronto. And if it wasn't yet obvious what he was planning on doing, it by all margins was not good.
What?
After making his way to the northern tip of Yonge Street, a major arterial street running south through the city, he mounted the busy street's curb, just past Finch Avenue. Terrified pedestrians rushed out of the way from the now lethal van, but for those that were walking the other way, they had no chance. Alec avalanched his truck through the sidewalk. After flooring his vehicle through the block, a
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But there's a white Ryder van driving down the fucking sidewalk. You know it has to be halfway decently loud, and you know this lady was just sitting in there, and it was like, woo, she's like, didn't even nothing.
camera caught his truck speeding past North York Rose Garden.
Oh shit.
Terrified pedestrians continued to jump out of the way as he continued to head south. Surveillance from a bus on duty and a nearby resident on their phone both captured the van travelling past Mel Lastman Square. Alec then ignored intersecting traffic as he fired through a crossroad. Again, he was seen mounting the pavement. Officer Ken Lamb was the first officer to respond to Alec's rampage. A flurry of phone calls started coming in at 1:29 PM, and with officers instructed to be on the lookout for a white van near Yonge Street near Beecroft Road, Ken was the first officer to find him. He U-turned his police car to obstruct Alec's truck, but before he even reached him, Alec stopped. His vehicle was already struggling to manoeuvre. Innocent bystanders in their vehicles watched in fear as Ken burst out of his police car, gun drawn at Alec. Alec drew back, and immediately it seemed that the two were ready to be in an exchange of bullets.
Damn.
But something didn't seem quite right for Ken. The gun Alec was holding was distinctively unusual. A brief standoff ensued, but luckily there was no gunfire. Alec then tried to intimidate the officer by withdrawing and redrawing his gun, but by now Ken had already realised that the gun was actually Alec's wallet. Ken reached into his car to grab his baton, before he reappeared and began to lure Alec out into the open. Alec took the bait, following Ken Lamb into the street. Ken knew what he was doing. With the suspect now in the open, he lowered his gun as he drew his baton, and flipped his stance on the situation, now firmly proceeding towards Alec. The power shift worked. Alec immediately backed up, before swiftly dropping his wallet and raised his arms in surrender. And with Ken's very quick decision-making skills, Alec was apprehended, with not a single bullet fired.
Cool.
The Incel's reign of terror was now finally over.
Or was it? Was it? They said this is really boring.
Just 20 minutes later, after responding, he was booked in by police. And only a few minutes after the attack, Alec's Facebook post began to circulate around friends, and then the internet. The Department of National Defence very swiftly confirmed that the military ID did belong to Alec too. As panic and disorder sharply rose and fell throughout the city of Toronto, the world would slowly learn of Alek Minassian's heinous actions, and shortly after, tragically, police officers would learn that 10 civilians had lost their lives. The very next day, Alek Minassian would officially be charged with 10 counts of murder, and eventually 16 counts of attempted murder would come his way too. But before his official charges, he would have to face initial interrogation. And as if Alec wasn't bizarre enough already, his statements would be even.
So during his rampage, he did actually run over. Okay, was he meaning to run over these people? Like, did he have something out for these people, or was it just walking down the road and he's just like, 20 points, 30 points, hat still on? Fuck yeah, 150 points. Oh.
Stranger.
Thanks so much. How you feeling?
feeling good?
You feeling okay? My name's Rob Thomas. Alec, I want you to understand something. I'm a senior detective with the Toronto Police. I've done a little bit of reading, and I know a little bit about involuntary
Celibacy.
Celibacy, right? So it's being celibate, involuntarily
Yes.
celibate. What does that mean?
That means celibacy means someone who never has a sexual intercourse.
Right.
Involuntary celibacy means this wasn't your choice.
I
You
see.
essentially are have been thrown into true forced loneliness, and you're unable to lose your virginity.
When did you first go on to 4chan?
2014.
I don't understand. So you have people who choose to be celibate and people who celibacy is forced upon. How can you force someone not to diddle theirself? Like, how can you force someone not to buy them a hooker? How can you force someone not to buy them some sort of sexually stimulating device that gets them to the face? No? Don't give me that bullshit, bud. No one's forcing you to. No. You could buy, rent, you can do a lot of things, but don't. No.
2014, and specifically when in 2014?
May 23, 2014.
And how were you able to remember that?
Because I remember that was a very significant day.
Okay, what was that?
That was when Elliot Rodger decided to essentially commit an uprising, a beta uprising, if you will,
Right.
against the Chads and the Stacys.
So explain to me this movement. What's this movement about?
It's basically a movement of angry incels, such as myself, who are unable to get laid. Therefore, we want to overthrow the Chads,
Mhm.
which would force the Stacys to be forced to reproduce with the incels.
Right, okay. And what about the normies?
Yes, we don't necessarily wish to kill the normies, but we do wish to subjugate them in order to make them understand
What
that
the fuck, bro?
that our type, the incels, or the Pepe the Frog types, as the more superior ones.
So you're saying things that I'm not familiar with.
Sorry.
So what's a Pepe the
But
Frog?
he's a mascot on 4chan. He's actually worshipped quite frequently.
Oh, okay. All right. Have you ever communicated with these fellas?
There's people who worship the fucking stupid frog thing? Oh my god. You know something? I kind of enjoy living in blind ignorance on how stupid people in this world can actually fucking be. Oh my god.
I actually have, as a matter of fact,
Who did you have conversation with first? Let me ask you that.
Elliot.
Elliot.
We private messaged each other on Reddit
Yeah.
after I saw one of his posts,
Mm-hmm.
and we just talked about each other, got to know each other, and we found each other very interesting. We both
Why didn't you guys just date each other? Like, you guys sound like you would have made the perfect couple. I'm not meaning that in any disrespect whatsoever. Like, it sounds like you two actually had a genuine connection. I know you probably think or was raised up that you were supposed to be with women and only women, or whatever the case may be. Maybe, that wasn't the case. Maybe you just needed to stop fighting who you was, because it sounds to me like you and Elliot had so much in common. You all would have made like a power couple. Just saying. They could have just loved each other, went on walks with each other. Dumbasses.
had the same frustrations at society.
So when did you last speak to him?
May 20.
May 20th. And so what did he tell you?
He told me that he has to go. He is on a very important mission,
Mhm.
and he might not make it back alive. I kind of had an idea in my head of what he was planning, but I didn't want to think it was true at the time, so I replied and said, I wish you good luck with that.
Right on. Okay. All right. So
Man, okay, you can tell how he's talking that he's got some problems. And I imagine that did not help with the situation any at all. Fuck me.
take me through that process. What was going through your mind, and what were you thinking when you were doing all of this? What was going on?
I was thinking that it was a time that I stood up to the Chads and Stacys.
Okay.
And why are pretty guys and pretty ladies called Chads and Stacys? I don't understand that either. I don't understand anything nowadays.
I'm going to ask you this, because it's important. 10 people died here today. 15 people were seriously injured. I think it's important to ask how you feel about that.
I feel like I accomplished my mission.
You feel like you accomplished your mission?
Yes.
Okay. If the families of those people who were murdered and who were injured were in this room right now, what would you say to them?
I honestly don't know what I would say.
You accomplished your mission, bud. You just fucking said it. Dumb shit.
To add to the harrowing details around this case, just like Elliot Rodger, Alek Minassian was actually cheered by many incels on their online communities. In fact, he was actually even named as Saint Alek by some. But in stark contrast to incel celebrations, the city of Toronto itself was in great despair. Tragically, it was learned that of the 10 victims, 8 of them were women, something that strangely fit in too well to Alek's plan. And his own parents, who would learn of the devastating attack through watching the news, were suffering too. The two of them were a very private but loving couple, and now they would both have to face the cold fact that their very own son was a killer. Their home immediately became a scene for investigation, and the media would record police's every move around the house extensively. And moving forward, both Son and Vahe had to sell their property, never returning only 2 months later. Both of them felt that they were no longer safe in the building that once raised their own son.
That's awful.
Alek Minassian's trial, which was initially scheduled for February the 10th, 2020, had to be delayed due to the pandemic. It was postponed to March the 2nd, a date that was then eventually moved back to April the 6th, and then again to November. But when Alek eventually faced trial, his defense argued that, due to Alek's diagnosis on the autism spectrum, he was not capable of rational choice at the time of the van attack. His lawyer claimed that the disorder left Alek without the ability to develop empathy, and ultimately, he was unable to know what he was morally doing wrong. But the prosecution would adamantly disagree with this statement, and claimed that his disorder did not push him to carry out the attack. The trial would take 6 weeks, and all of it would be held via video conference due to the pandemic. And Alek himself pleaded not guilty to 10 counts of first-degree murder and 16 counts of attempted murder. But his persistence in his innocence did not help his already damned case, because on the 3rd of March 2021, Alek was officially found guilty on all counts of first-degree murder and attempted murder, the entire verdict being delivered live on YouTube. But again, due to the effects of the pandemic, his official sentencing is yet to be scheduled. And with families of the victims wishing to read out their impact statements face-to-face with Alek, it is unlikely to happen until late 2022. In the wake of his destruction, Alek Minassian killed 10 innocent people. He had not met a single one of them in his life before. And that's one of the horrifying details to this case, because to him, it didn't matter.
It's fucking awful.
And the variation between those that were killed was vast. These people were all in varying stages and walks of life. They were students, retirees, nutritionists, account executives, salespeople, financial analysts, and chefs. All of them going by their day without any realization to their impending fate. And they would all leave behind their own grieving family, and many distraught friends. Following the 23rd of April 2018, many leaders expressed their love and support to the victims and their families. A memorial began that night at Olive Square Park, located across the road from where Alek's van first mounted the curb. And moving forward, several crowdfunding campaigns were set up to raise funds for the victims' families. The hashtag Toronto Strong was used in their memory, and a permanent memorial was announced. By December 2020, over $4 million Canadian had been raised and distributed to the families, and plans for a permanent memorial are still underway.
That's cool.
And as for Alek Minassian, with him now found guilty to all charges and his sentencing set to happen later next year, it is unlikely that he'll ever spend a single day again as a free man.
Good.
Being found mentally competent while conducting his profoundly inhumane actions means it is unlikely that he will face a lenient sentence. And rightfully so, this crime had no personal motive to each individual victim. It was one simply conducted to incite more hate, fear, and division. A desperate continuation from an already severely disconnected individual. Alek Minassian follows Elliot Rodger as an incel that the world will notice, laugh at, and then forget. Thank you again for watching another video today by Coffeehouse.
Thank you for having me. Damn, bro. Thank you so much for the suggestion, peoples. Man, that had me enthralled. Like, I'm just sitting like, man, I loved it. I loved it. That's crazy, though. Just rent a van and just start just mowing people down. 10 people with the van before he finally got taken down. And 15 to 16 others were injured. That's crazy. It's craziness, people. All right. Like I said, I really enjoyed today's video. Thank you so much for the suggestion. If you all enjoyed today's video as much as I did, please go down there, leave a thumbs up. It really helps the channel grow. There we go. Had to get that announcer voice going on. And if you're a fan of the spooky, scary, strange, or deranged, think about subscribing. That's what we do. And as always, be good to one another, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye. Alright, I'll see y'all next time. Bye-bye. Oh, God. I mean, I feel kind of bad for this one, unlike the other one, because this one here had, actual, disabilities. And it seemed like he was easily persuaded, and damn. I don't know. This is Adrian. I like the face hair, but